Raiders Dolphins is the next one that I want to hit. Gardner Minshew announces the starting quarterback. Antonio Pierce said that he gives them the best chance to win the football game. Will they win the football game here against the Miami Dolphins? I'll start with this one because I was really impressed with how the Dolphins played on Monday Night Football. I really thought that it was kind of easy money for the Rams last week. Like, I thought, okay, you got Steve Avila coming back, you got Jonah Jackson coming back, you got Joe Noteboom out there. All right, Joe Noteboom's been a little up and down, but still, the projected offensive line that you wanted, or most of them, are still out there. You got Puka Nacua back now. The offense has been rolling. You had a massive win in overtime against the Seattle Seahawks. Like, it felt like the Rams were becoming that darling team. And then they ran into the Miami Dolphins, who, since Tua has come back, has looked like a competent football team. And I think the reason why the Dolphins were able to win that game is because of how well their defense played, specifically their pass rush, an area of their team that has really been lacking all season long, with Bradley Chubb still getting back from that Achilles injury. I believe it was Achilles injury, maybe an ACL injury. I can't remember which one it was. And then Jalen Phillips sort of miraculously being able to start the season, and then him going down for the year as well. But last week against the Rams, 75.3 pass rush grade as a team for the Miami Dolphins. That was the best single game performance from them as a team. 4 sacks, also the best single game performance. And so Calais Campbell, Chop Robinson, Zach Seiler, those guys were fantastic last week, and they were really able to come together as a group and get into the backfield and finish plays before Matthew Stafford was able to get the ball out of his hands. We know that until he's out on the ground, you really can't count him out, but the Miami Dolphins got him on the ground quite a bit, 4 times to be exact. The Raiders offensive line, though, presents a pretty interesting test, because I think sometimes throughout the last couple of years, we've been able to talk about the Raiders offensive line as a big area of weakness for their team, but I want to give them some kudos here. Last 4 weeks for the Las Vegas Raiders, 71.0 team blocking grade. Jackson Powers Johnson and Jordan Meredith are 2 interior offensive linemen, both graded above an 82, which is really nice to have over a 4-week stretch of time. DJ Glaze and Colt Miller, those guys are playing well as well. And so it's sort of coming together for the Las Vegas Raiders. They've been playing much better up front as a group. Can they neutralize a Dolphins team that's coming off of the best single game performance that they have had up front so far this season? So to me, that's a major matchup that matters in this one, because, all right, you can probably favor the Dolphins a little bit no matter what, given the potency of their offense now that Tua is back. But if that defense can't get after the Raiders, they might be able to still move the ball a little bit, and this one might be closer or maybe even finish in a different way than you might expect. But what about you? What do you have as the matchup that matters here?
Well, for very much the same reason as you just said, I'm flipping it around, and it's the Dolphins' offensive line against the Raiders' defensive line, because the Raiders' defensive line, with obviously Max Crosby, is one of the strengths of that team. And can you affect this offensive line in Miami that has had its ups and downs all season? And I think, especially when Tua went down, you looked at this offensive line and you were like, why didn't you do more? And when you, like, if you were the Dolphins in the offseason, why didn't you kind of ensure against some of these injuries that you knew inevitably were going to happen? Why didn't you fortify that, get some more quality depth? That is something that is crucially important too, now that Tua is back, to protect him and to make sure that he doesn't end up on his back, or God forbid, hitting his head or anything like that. You have to be extraordinarily careful now with the quarterback that you have sitting in the pocket behind you. And the Raiders have a means to get through that line in Max Crosby, who leads their team in pressures with 34. And honestly, the Dolphins' offensive line, grade-wise, is kind of middling. Pass blocking grade, it ranks 18th in the league at a 70.1, 75.5 PFF grade overall, which is 11th. But you really, again, that's kind of the insurance, and that's the engine that's going to make everything go, because if Tua is scared in the pocket, that's not going to bode well for his offensive efficiency, for his offensive productivity, and it's not going to bode well for him as a person either.
Right. And he's my plus factor of this one, because, again, things seem to be getting back to normal with the Dolphins offense now that he's out there, right? We saw them get creative with Malik Washington as well. Like Tyreek Hill, he scored a touchdown, but you have to have that like big time Tyreek Hill explosion game. I think that's coming at some point. Maybe it'll be this week. Last week, I highlighted Jalen Waddle as my plus factor for them going into that game. And I basically said Jalen Waddle is on pace for career lows in everything: catches, targets, yards, everything. And what happened? They really fed him this past week, especially early on in the game. I think they realized, hey, we got to get this guy a lot more involved. And when we do that, we will be able to unlock Tyreek Hill a little bit. So Tua, he is the engine that makes this go with this offense. And so he's the plus factor for me here. When targeting against single coverage specifically, you're looking at 21 for 38 attempts, those 304 passing yards, those 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's got the 3 big time throws and 0 turnover worthy plays. So he is playing confidently. He really is when he has been out there. He's got to protect himself, obviously. Got to stay healthy. That's the number one thing for Tua, as it is for everybody, really. But since he's been out there over the last couple of weeks, Carmen, it's looked a lot better. And so the Dolphins are no longer this team that you could just say, yeah, they're not having a great year. We should be able to get one up on them, even if you are the Raiders. I think they got a chance in this one because of how they play in the offensive trenches. And then 2, if they can sort of limit the explosive plays from the Dolphins. But we'll see. I think the levees are going to break at some point. I feel like the floodgates are opening, if you will, for the Dolphins offense. We haven't seen that game yet. It's coming. You just don't know when it's going to. Your plus factor here.
Yeah, I mean, there's all this discussion, though, about those explosive plays that we know that the Dolphins offense is capable of giving their receivers in Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, all that. But what I'm most surprised at is that even with Tua back, where have the running backs gone? We have Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane. Miami runs 21 personnel at the second highest rate in the league behind San Francisco, which, again, makes a lot of sense. Mike McDaniel spent a lot of time with Kyle Shanahan, and yet they rank 29th in rushing EPA per play. What is happening here? Why can't it was so effective last year? This was such a robust rushing attack for the Miami Dolphins, which, again, rounds out the offense and really makes the defense have to respect, the rushing attack right in front of them. And then that opens things up on the back end for guys like Tyreek Hill. And it opens things up for those explosive plays for Tua to take those shots. Why haven't we seen that? It's just not balanced at all. I'm kind of at a loss for the reasoning behind it, but I would love to see these guys get going a little bit more, especially if they're on the field anyway. I guess maybe they're helping out the offensive line because you know that you can't always trust them with straight 5-man protections, and you need to include some more guys in that. But good Lord, get these guys going. It was so good and so fun last year. We haven't seen the creativity this year at all out of Mike McDaniel and this offense, regardless of the explosive plays that we were missing when Tua was out.
Well, that said, Quentin in the chat, Quentin says he's taking the Dolphins, echoing a lot of the things that you said. He also said, as a Broncos fans, absolutely love Bradley Chubb, not the injuries, of course. I think Bradley Chubb's a phenomenal football player when he's healthy, and there is still a plan for him to come back this season, I believe. I haven't been told otherwise, so I think that is still in the works for them to be able to get Bradley Chubb back. So we will see. I think the Dolphins, again, are coming into form. We will see if that continues to take steps in the right direction this week against the Raiders. Rams